All right, guys, welcome back. Intermittent fasting today.
Fasting life.
We are both approximately 220 pounds. We go to the gym. We've been going to the gym for a long time. And intermittent fasting and the way we train doesn't really seem to be acceptable. It doesn't really go together.
Right.
Kind of breaks every rule out there, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about this.
Yeah, fasting in general. I think people in general, maybe even before you started fasting, when you think about fasting, you think about people who are maybe unhealthy, people
starving.
Yeah, starving. You think of like it being a starving diet. You think of it being not healthy. That's the key word. Not how's it healthy. What are the red flags and what are the good things about it? And you don't think about a guy in the gym working out who looks ripped or has a lot of muscle mass or at least maintains muscle mass.
Has a lot of muscle mass. Right. It just doesn't seem to go together.
Yeah, the two don't go together. You think about someone putting on a lot of muscle by eating constantly throughout the entire day.
And then like every magazine we read growing up, everybody we looked up to, you got to eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. Right. You got to measure your quantity of food. You got to have X amount of calories. And then we've kind of like broken every rule out there now, haven't we?
Yeah, that's the thing.
And honestly, still today, it's not eating breakfast, breaking all these rules, everything I was brought up to believe. Right. I'm still kind of like, this is crazy. This is nothing like I thought. I've been preconditioned one way, and now I've realized it's a completely different way, which is much easier and much better, specifically for me. And I know the same thing for you.
Right. And I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel society's the same exact way, to where they're thinking that they have to eat as often as possible, as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Particular kind of regimen of foods. If they miss meals, that maybe stunts their metabolism. If they miss meals, it might not be a good idea for them.
It's the worst thing in the world. From personal experience, if I missed a meal, it's the worst thing in the world. I would never miss a meal because I don't want to lose muscle. But here we are. We sit at 220. We stay lean, and it's never been easier, right?
Right. That's the thing. It's possible to revolve, what you want to do, over the food itself, and that seems to be not the case. I think it's still, like you said, it's still heavily promoted to eat every 2 hours, every 3 hours, have your snacks, have your meals, and we know a lot of it has to do with the marketing aspect of things. Certain people want to sell certain foods and certain products, so they want you to take it often as possible or these certain days. But even like the fitness industry, certain trainers, or even nutritionists, people who I've worked with who had nutritionists do their diets for them, plans for them. It was actually breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack. And these are people who they're going to for actual weight loss advice and actual direction for their overall health. And it could be maybe they didn't ask the actual doctor, hey, is there another way to do this? And that's usually the case too. But maybe, and that's the thing too, like, do people actually have a lot of education on fasting when it comes to doctors, when you go to school, when you go to schools for nutrition? Or is it something you take, on your own? Is fasting still that big of a thing now? Is it more based off people who have actually maybe diseases and actually like underlying illnesses, opposed to is it being studied and promoted for those who actually want to be the best of their game when it comes to their fitness level, but have their diet not revolve around their life? And
the thing is with fasting is it's not sexy. There's no money behind. There's no money in it.
Keywords.
So what you kind of said with the marketing, if everyone stops eating breakfast, everyone starts eating in a smaller window.
Big problem.
Everybody starts to eat less. Everybody starts to buy less food. Everybody's spending less money. It's not good for anybody besides the individual.
Right.
But they're so preconditioned, they're so brainwashed that it's so hard to break that mold. And before I met you, I kind of had the same problem. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I didn't skip breakfast once in 39 years.
Right.
I mean, and I'm being completely honest there. And now I haven't had breakfast since. It's nuts.
Look at you now.
Yeah, and it's just, there's so much we can talk about with this. Let's talk, what is a fast exactly? Like what's technically do you classify as a fast?
Yeah, I think fasting in general is just say you got up in the morning, had your breakfast, and you stopped eating. Your body's going to be in a fasted state. A simple way to put it, if you're eating, you're in a fed state.
Yeah.
If you're not eating, you're in a fasted state.
Feeding or fasting, right? Yeah.
So, and in general, some people actually will do this. They'll have their breakfast because it's the most important meal of the day. That's a fact. That's out there. It's
it's got to be true.
So they have the breakfast first. That's the law. That's the rules they need to follow for their performance and their health. And then they might be caught up with work, and they might fast, meaning have no food for maybe 8 hours on end.
Yeah.
They're feeling drained. They're feeling their blood sugar dropping. They have a coffee or energy drink. Maybe it's sugar-free because they want to avoid their sugar. It's not calories, so your body's still in a fasted state.
Yep.
So they'll have that. They'll pick themselves up regarding just energy, cognition from the caffeine or stimulants, and they'll go finish the work day. They'll get home. Maybe then it's 12 hours later. Finish that first meal, and then they'll have a meal. Then you're going to break your fast. So
which is breakfast. If you guys didn't realize that,
That's true.
Breaking a fast is breakfast.
Yeah. And so people in general, if they're more educated on fasting, they'll understand that people fast without even thinking about it. It's actually a habit of us to fast. If we have active lifestyles and we're busy work weeks, and we have kids and we have things to take care of, we fast.
Yeah,
and
without knowing that we're doing it.
Without knowing.
Yeah.
So I think self-consciously, if we actually keep in mind we actually are fasting without realizing it, then there's no negative detriment being done.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with going without food. It's just, unfortunately, we're told every single day, marketing, that you got to constantly eat. And even away from bodybuilders, even away from people trying to lose weight, just society in general is under the misconception that we need to eat all the time. And it's absolutely crazy, because the problem when you eat all the time, it doesn't ever give your body a break. You never have a chance to just recover, be settled, be like, how nice of a feeling is it when you wake up in the morning when you've been fasting for a good 10, 15, 16 hours. You feel so settled, your stomach feels so
everything
empty,
looks tight,
so flat, you're so tight. It opposed to bloated, and that's
the thing about it.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I'd say one thing too, I'm not sure if you will agree with it or not, but I noticed that eating after a certain hour at night is promoted. Well, they'll say, hey, don't eat after 8 o'clock, don't eat after this amount. And people realize or not, when you don't eat after that X amount of time, you're still going into a fasted state. So if they're saying don't eat after a certain time period before you go to bed because it's not healthy for you.
Yeah.
So when you actually reconfigure that and think, okay, how is eating in the morning, no different? Why can't I just...
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, that's a very interesting point.
That's the thing about it. So you can always flip-flop that too and say, hey, maybe I don't eat in the morning, and based on how you feel. And that's the thing too. It's very, pushed out there. You have to eat breakfast. You need lunch. You need dinner. How about if you're not hungry?
Yeah, and that's
still eat.
I know for a lot of, especially females, I know a lot of females don't particularly get hungry in the morning.
That's the thing.
They tend to eat because that's what you're supposed to do. But I know for me, I was always looking forward to breakfast, but now I'm conditioned where I don't get hungry anymore, which is crazy to say when I used to eat 6, 8, 12 meals a day.
Yeah, your breakfast is probably like at dinner time now.
It's like 4:35. I've still got 5 hours till breakfast, which is crazy.
You're alive and well and feel great.
So to get into intermittent fasting, we recommend probably doing at least 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window to get started. Yeah. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, a lot of my lifestyle clients that I train work with right now who have no clue about fasting, when we go through our questionnaire, and we're just an everyday individual, someone who's not an athlete, bodybuilder, someone who wants to just get in shape in general. I go over the questionnaire and we see how their regimen of eating is planned out naturally, and if they're already getting up in the morning and having their coffee on the go, but maybe they're adding some milk to it or cream to it, we'll maybe try a sugar-free approach, and make that an actual true fast and go from there. But like you were saying, 8 hours usually is if most people usually eat or snack within an 8-hour window, and if we can and it's usually empty calories. They might have something like Starbucks.
Yeah,
and it was
something they don't necessarily need to be having, right?
So I said, hey, how about we actually go sugar-free for this 8-hour window and see how you feel before you start eating. So most people, I'm not sure what people watching this think about it, but in the morning, most people get their Starbucks in the morning, and they don't want to have any donuts or danishes because they know it's not good for them in the morning. Yeah. But they need their Starbucks, so they'll have their Starbucks with maybe some cream or sugar in it. And they'll usually go 8 hours before their next meal or 6 hours before their next meal. So clients that I have that same idea regarding how they're regimented is for food-wise and work-wise. So I'll say, hey, when you go to Starbucks, have something that's going to be just calorie-free. Yeah. You can have your sugar-free sweeteners just to get that sweet tooth kick in there. But see if you can go 6 hours, 8 hours, with that, and then have your meal from there. And then from there, we build from 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours.
Gotcha.
As they feel that
that
they need to.
So you'll say your last meal at night is at 8 p.m. and then you're waking up and then you're, like you said, you're going to get your Starbucks at 9 a.m.
Right.
Rather than having some sugar, some cream, some calories, you're talking about having sugar-free, black coffee, and that doesn't break your fast. So you've been fasting from 8 p.m. all the way through the night while you're sleeping. You're now fasting in the morning.
Continued.
And now we're pushing it. We're trying to get to 12 p.m.
Right.
So 8 p.m. at night through to 12 p.m. the next day, and that's giving you a 16-hour fasting window.
Right.
And then we're trying to work on that consistently each and every day, and then that becomes habit.
Right.
And then if you want to have your Starbucks with a bit of sugar, which we don't recommend, but if you want to, then that's when you would have it.
Then it's okay.
If you want to have your lunch, that's when you would have it. But 8 p.m. You're cutting it off. You're not putting another thing in your mouth besides water through to 12 p.m. the next day.
Yeah. And from there, you're creating good eating habits and good habits for just your overall health as well.
Yeah. And you got an 8-hour eating window, and then like Cordell said, now in that 8-hour eating window, you're trying to develop what's the word that you use? You're trying to change one thing.
Yeah, one variable at a time.
One variable.
Yeah.
So you got that 8-hour window, and now you're adding one variable, or you're taking one variable, or you're doing both.
Correct.
And that might be, that one variable might be, okay, in that 8-hour eating window, I'm not having soda.
Right.
And I'm doing that consistently until that becomes lifestyle, that becomes my blueprint, my DNA. This is, I don't drink soda anymore. And then you're adding one new thing. And before you know it, you start adding 1, 2, 5, 10 new things, and you're doing that 16-hour fast, and your body is changing dramatically by then. But it's such small, subtle little things that you don't even notice it at the time. You just focus on one thing at a time.
And you're doing so much things internally and externally too. Your labs are going to change dramatically too. Most of us, our blood sugar is out of control. We're eating the worst things at the worst times, and our blood sugar is out of whack. Digestion's off, we're eating so much our body's not able to actually digest the food, recover from the food. Sleep may maybe not be there as well too. So if we're doing a simple thing like giving your body a rest, because we know how much energy is being burned. Your body uses quite a bit of energy when it comes to breaking down foods.
It's like 60-70% of your energy, isn't it? Goes into digesting food.
Precisely. And if you include horrible foods like alcohol, fried, fatty foods, that's even more energy being taken into perspective. On top of that too, your hormones are being spiked out of control as well for fat storage.
Your body's just going all over the place.
So,
like, what do you call it? Your carb comas, your Thanksgiving meal where you sleep afterwards.
Exactly.
And people going through that every single day, aren't they?
That's the thing. They crash from their food. I'm like, you shouldn't crash from your food.
No, you should. And honestly, you don't have to. Once you start eating cleaner, you start fasting, you realize you don't have to have your afternoon naps.
Right. That's key.
Yeah. So recommending doing 16 and then that 8-hour window, getting it cleaner.
Right.
Why does fasting work, in your opinion? What is it about fasting?
Yeah. I think the main thing about it, I'll say two things. I think the main thing is it's a lot of us do it unintentionally. We do it without realizing we're doing it. When it's brought to life, maybe by a friend or a coach or a nutritionist, that you're doing this already and do this with structure, it's going to be a lot easier to obtain because you're doing that already, opposed to saying, let's go on this diet, chicken and rice. And you're like, oh crap,
gotcha.
Man, I gotta,
So you're saying you're just extending something you're already doing, and you're adding a bit of a purpose.
Yeah, and it's not a diet.
Yeah.
I don't think fasting is a diet at all.
No, it's definitely a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle tool you can use to your advantage. So when you have someone saying, hey, I'm going on a diet, that they already freak out, hormones spike, I got a diet, it's going to be horrible.
And as soon as you hear diet, you're like, you want everything that you could have had every day, all of a sudden you want it.
Out of your system.
You haven't wanted In-N-Out for 6 months, now you want In-N-Out because you can't have it.
Yeah, opposed to just a time frame. Second thing I'd say, if I want to add a second thing on there, is we have to realize when we're doing, like some of us do like 18, 20-hour days, as crazy as it sounds, we'll say maybe average person does maybe 16-hour days where they're up before they go to bed, that is. So you're eating for 16 hours. Now, if you're fasting and you're only eating for 8 hours, those calories that you would consume for those 8 hours are cut in half because you're cutting your eating window in half.
So you get less time to eat junk.
Less time to eat, less time to have food, less time to actually have stored body fat, so therefore you're going to lose more weight than you would or you lose more, if not the same, if you were using that word diet in your regimen.
And the basics of weight loss is eating less calories than what you burn on a consistent basis, right?
That's your base, yeah.
So by fasting, you're restricting the time you're consuming calories, which is bringing your calories down overall.
Correct.
Which is helping you lose weight.
Correct.
And the longer you can fast for, the less calories you're going to eat. And when you do eat after not eating for so long, it's very hard to eat, like I know it seems like you could overeat, but it's kind of different. I feel like your stomach kind of shrinks. You're not able to take in as much food.
Yeah, things kind of regulate for the best. We're in the sense of like usually when you can binge more because you're constantly spiking, where your levels are balanced. You have that first meal after that fast. You'll usually feel like, I actually don't have that as much cravings as I usually do. So like I said, the health benefits are tremendous regarding this to your body in general, your hormones adapting, adjusting to fasting. And your body will realize too that, you'll realize in general that fasting is actually a good thing overall when it comes to just how you feel, and you shouldn't have as much of a crash during that eating window. You won't crave as much, and the thing about it, you're not dieting necessarily. If you're doing a fast, you're just having that time restricted of eating, and then you have your choice of foods. And some people will have a burger and fries a day, and that's just what they're doing. And one burger at a time. Once again, we have them on fasting, and they have their burger and fries at night. At Cordell, I had half a burger. I didn't want the full burger, and that's weird. I'm like, it's weird, but that's your body, hey, this is what
your body starts to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
It actually gives you a chance to tell you what's up.
Finally, when you give it a break, it rewards you.
And I just want to touch on the reason why we eat the way that we do in society, the 3 meals a day, the snacks in between, is from, if you go back to early 1900s, it's from work schedules. Mm-hmm. It's from factory workers. It's from, hey, you're going to work for 8 to 12 hour shift. Mm-hmm. You're going to eat before you work. You're going to have a lunch break. You're going to eat afterwards. Mm-hmm. And that's where the 3 meals a day actually came from.
Correct.
And that's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just born into society where that's just the norm, and we don't really ever question it. Yeah. And if we do question it, people look at us like, oh, you're crazy. You got to have your 3 meals. You got to have breakfast. Mm-hmm. It's so much I can touch on. We're so just brainwashed.
Yeah, we're so like.
If you want to go back in the past where we're hunters and gatherers, how do we eat then?
Yeah, it was more so when we had food available, we ate, and when we were hungry, we would eat. And we were probably healthier, and
we were healthier.
Had less issues going on back then. We had to literally fight for our food and kill for our food. So the cardio was there, and the energy was being used. And
it's like we ate when we could, and then we fasted. We went without food when we didn't have access to food, or it was winter where food wasn't as abundant. We went without food. Right. But we survive, just like animals do. Animals feed and fast. That's all they do, don't they?
That's the beautiful thing about our bodies is we can adapt to anything.
Yeah, and it's not us making this up. This is the way it's been around since human beings existed.
Correct.
It's only the last kind of couple hundred years where it's kind of changed. Right. And are we getting healthier? Or are we getting unhealthier? It's not even a question. We're going downhill very quickly right now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So what technically? We kind of touched on this. Technically, to stay in a fasted state, what do you think you can do? What do you think you can't do?
And there's so many things, like some things that people will, if you guys probably maybe have read or seen people talk about fasting, there's certain supplements that you can take, or certain drinks that are sugar-free that still may spike insulin, which means will take you out of the fasted state. In my opinion, as long as it's going to be 0 calories, you're fine. Like if you were to have like a little bit of like black tea in the morning with some lemon on it, if you're putting some lemon juice on it, I don't think that's enough calories to be significant to break a fast.
Technically, it might break a fast.
They'll say technically,
but it's not going to stop you losing weight.
Yeah, and then how much of a spike in blood sugar will it take you out of that fasted state before you go back into a fasted state? How's your metabolism? Did you work out in the morning? I think, like you were saying, back to without getting too in depth with it, putting things like Splenda or stevia or lemon, in coffee without adding like actual milk and actual
cream,
sugar. Yeah, it's going to benefit you weight loss tremendously, health benefit tremendously than having those actual things that you want to avoid.
Yeah, and I don't use any of those sweeteners, but if you use one of those sweeteners opposed to cream,
right,
that's probably about a start.
Yeah, and then if you want to, hey Brendan, I want to slowly get rid of everything. Well, let's start with what you're doing right now. Cut the cream out first, and then we'll keep the fake sweetener in there, and then hopefully eventually we can go to like a plant-based sweetener, to a 0 sweetener, and
to eventually black.
Black.
And in my opinion, black coffee, green tea, water,
just plain.
That's the way I do it.
You don't.
That's the way I personally do it.
You don't cringe doing it. You just drink it like it's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
but it took you time to get.
Trust me, I love vanilla sweet cream, but I know that black coffee is going to keep me in a faster state. I know I'm going to be able to be able to fast a day because of it. Yeah. I get that little energy bump. I get that little mood enhancer.
I think it's all about, like you say, a lot about training the mind. As you get as you get stronger with dieting, regarding as you get more mentally strong and more at will get stronger, you're able to try more things because you like the results you're getting. So that's why I always like to use the one step at a time, one variable at a time, so you can kind of get that variable knocked out. You feel great, you feel confident. Let's tackle this next thing. Let's tackle this next thing. That's probably the same approach that you took to get from. I don't know if you were drinking black coffee your entire life or not. Most people.
No.
Yeah.
you make it a priority.
That's
like, hey, this is now the next step in my new habit.
Right.
I like developing habits. I like one habit at a time.
Right.
One healthy habit. Keep it consistent where it is a habit. This is now in my blueprint, my DNA, like I kind of said. Now I'm adding another healthy habit.
Right.
And that for me might be like I'm fasting 16 hours. Now I'm fasting 16 hours, I'm having black coffee. Now I'm fasting 18 hours, black coffee.
Right.
And just build on that. And before you know it, you got so many healthy habits where it's next to impossible to put on weight, to be unhealthy, to get sick, because you're doing everything right on a consistent basis, because now they're all habits.
Correct.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on that before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think just you got to look much more different ways when it comes to fasting. A lot of us look one direction when we think about fasting. I think about Gandhi, I don't know why, but I think about Gandhi, like a very small guy who doesn't eat and starving. But fasting in general, it's literally not a diet. It can be a lifestyle. It can be a tool used for eating.
A tool. I love how you say tool.
It can be a tool used towards
It is
eating.
a tool.
Yeah, it's something that you can use to your advantage. Something that you need to run from or freak out about, because you're going to use it to your advantage, whether your goal be putting on muscle like you and I are doing, or losing weight, which you and I are doing as well, or just being healthy in general. But the main thing about fasting, like that Elias says, it's a lot of health markers. There's a lot of studies showing the health benefits of fasting and indirectly weight loss. If you're still trying to build muscle, you will still be able to build muscle as well. It's just more so knowing how to actually structure what you're doing towards that goal with fasting.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on too, if somebody tells you something, fasting's bad, fasting's starving, look at them. Have they tried it?
Right.
Are they overweight? Do they have credibility to be talking about health in the first place? And if they don't have that, don't listen to them.
Yeah.
You're a 220-pound bodybuilder who fasts.
Right.
If you want to look like him, listen to what he's got to say. And I mean, that's his way of doing it. There's many different ways of doing it, but you don't listen to a fat personal trainer. Don't listen to a broke financial planner. Listen to people who don't just know, they actually apply.
Yeah.
I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. If there's someone who actually is in shape, feel free to ask them. Provide evidence. Fasting's bad for me. What's bad about it? Can you explain to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And typically they won't have a good reason. They'll say, "Oh, it's just not good."
It's just easy to shy upon things, right?
Look at me. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Then that's between you and that coach trainer to continue to move forward.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. Hope you got some value out of that, and we'll see you next time.